Welcome back to the Morning Movement Show. I'm your host, Sarah Joy Gaines, and today I am joined by Sam Bale, founder of Third Place Bar. Please welcome Sam, everybody. Sam, I am so excited to have you here today. I was thinking about this, with JoyFlow and everything that I teach. I've talked a lot about the body love piece of it and the coming into the contact and power and wisdom of your body and all that. But a piece that I haven't talked too much about it is kind of this intersection and parallel of just letting yourself move and breathe and dance and party in your words freely without the use of alcohol, because that is such a something that we see societally is this necessity of if I'm going to go out and party, there needs to be alcohol involved. And you have created this amazing community and these amazing spaces in New York for folks to gather without the use of alcohol. Yeah. So I'm super excited to have you here today, and I can't wait to dive into this conversation. Before we get to today, I want you to take us back and share what was your first memory of movement that you have?
My first memory of movement as a kid, I grew up in Germany and we had very snowy winters. And I think one of the first things I remember as a child is sledding and just running up the hill, getting on a sled, riding down and then back up and down. And funny enough, I was really obsessed with that. And I would also do that at home in a laundry basket, going up the stairs and then riding down the stairs like a crazy person. And I'm a snowboarder now, and I'm actually currently recovering from a snowboarding injury. So Go figure. I think just sliding down hills is a thing that I've always enjoyed.
A wild child at heart is really what I'm hearing.
Definitely a wild child, for sure.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about that. The wild child essence of bringing it out in a completely substance-free environment.
Yeah.
How did you create Third Place Bar? How did that come to be?
Yeah, I kind of, after, 2 years of sitting at home and lockdowns and everything in 2022, and then actually remember the first summer we got vaccinated and everyone was out partying, and a pretty heavy party summer, I was just realizing I was constantly drinking, partying, and even just to go outside and be with people and socialize, and drinking just comes with that.
Right.
And I realized there's no real spaces that encourage, socializing, especially after hours, that don't revolve around drinking. It's always, it's the bars, it's the clubs. There's nothing there that's open late where you can just hang out with other people, where you don't feel like you should be drinking. So initially I had the idea of starting an actual brick and mortar alcohol-free bar, hence the name Third Place Bar, that functions as that kind of third space or third place. Just due to the rents and everything in New York City, I have not taken that step yet because that's a huge financial commitment.
Sure.
So I started out with a pop-up model to just host events to kind of build up the community, figure out the space, figure out what do people want to drink, what do they want to do when they don't drink alcohol, right? It was completely unknown to me because I only just stopped drinking sort of as part of that exploration. And I've been doing that for the past almost 2.5 years at this point.
Wow.
And I've hosted over 50 events. I've had over 2,000 people, I think, come through.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's awesome.
Come through those events, and I'm just kind of going with the pop-up events because they're really fun and they allow me to do lots of different things. Yeah.
Totally. What kind of events do you what does a sober event look like?
Yeah, it really depends. Sometimes it's really just a social. Sometimes it's just we have a space. I always try and give people some kind of activity to do, whether that's conversation starter cards or some crafting or something. Sometimes it's something as simple as taking over one of the sober bars in the city and just having a party. We did a sober St. Patrick's Day party, a Valentine's Day, a dry January kickoff, or it's literally just here's a party, let's go party.
Right.
Which to me is a really fantastic opportunity for people who are kind of exploring their sobriety to be in an environment that kind of, it feels like a bar. There's people partying. It's kind of loud. You have to squeeze through, but no one is drinking.
Right.
There's just no alcohol around. So instead of you having to sort of, muster up all your willpower and courage to go out to a regular bar where everyone is drinking and you're the only person who's kind of the weirdo who doesn't have a drink or is like sipping their seltzer. Everyone is sober, and that just makes it a lot easier. It just takes alcohol out of the equation. So yeah, it's lots of different events. Sometimes I do mixology classes too, alcohol-free mixology
So cool.
classes. I've done trivia nights, movie nights. We did last Friday night, we did a different kind of Friday night out where we had a yoga class and a live DJ.
My kind of
and
night.
a tea bar. So we're doing tea
We're like,
shots.
we will all be there next
I
week.
know. Next month, May actually.
Oh, no, okay, great. There you go.
We got another date scheduled for May. So, yeah, just an opportunity to bring people together and kind of make it either feel like a bar or it's like a Friday night or something where you would usually be drinking.
Yeah.
But just take that out of the equation.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing, it's like this shattering of this expectation of, or idea of
Yeah.
what going out
Yeah.
can be or should be, and really opening up this whole new world, to quote Little Mermaid. Exactly. Of
Yeah.
just like, what can life be without this solve that is so prevalent in our society? I mean, I can remember even being in college, like being a sophomore in college, and I mean, I drank. I was a college student. I drank. I wasn't, not doing that, but I was still always aware of like how ingrained it was that like this is the thing to do. I remember I actually wrote down a note in my phone because I had overheard somebody saying, "Well, it's my 21st birthday. Of course I'm going to black out." And I was like, "What?" Like that's the expectation and like the goal that you're going to black out. It's just there's everything in moderation. And so I just think what you're doing is so important, because it's not to say that drinking alcohol is the absolute worst thing that you can do, but it's finding these spaces and these ways to live that show you a different way, and a way that you can embrace that sense of, the wild child energy without the use of alcohol.
Yeah, I think you've just summarized the whole idea behind Third Place Bar better than I could, really. No, you're absolutely right. It's the idea of, we don't preach sobriety. We don't just sit in a room and talk about our problems, but really provide an alternative for people who want to go out and want to socialize, who want to do something on a Friday night,
Right.
but not necessarily black out or be surrounded by people who are blacking out, because after a certain point, being surrounded by very drunk people is also maybe not that much fun anymore when
Totally.
you're totally sober. So it's really just about providing an alternative. The majority of people who come to Third Place Bar events, just based on me talking to everyone, I'd say like 75% of people still drink alcohol occasionally. It's not, this is not AA, it's not a sobriety cult or anything. It's really just for people who are kind of like tired of drinking all the time and want
Right.
to do something else, because they want to see alcohol as optional and not necessarily as the foundation of socializing and going out.
Totally. Okay, can we take it a step further and talk about sober partying? Because I know you're big on this, and I was thinking of you this weekend because Parker and I, my boyfriend, we woke up, we went to bed early, and then set our alarms for 3 a.m., woke up, and we are very blessed to live in New York City, where we can show up to a club at 4 a.m., and we started our day dancing. And from 4 to 7 until the club closed, we were there dancing. And as we were there, I was thinking, like, we are the most sober people here, and we are dancing like the most freely. And that's something that I've experienced, in different stages of my life. And I very much attribute Joy Flow and the practice of like letting myself just dance and be free to make me able to go out in spaces and be rid of any like self-consciousness of like, what am I looking like when I'm moving, or are people looking at me, and just letting myself dance and be free. And so I'd love to hear from your perspective, because I know that you like to sober party.
Yep, I party sober. Maybe I party a little too much even. I am occasionally sleep deprived. So for me, the one thing that's really tragic, and we've talked about this before, is that so many people kind of have the perception that partying, and it's kind of almost implied in the word partying, right? Partying kind of means you're doing things, that like going out, clubbing, dancing, whatever is so intertwined with alcohol or consuming other substances. And that's really upsetting to me, because moving to music, and that's literally joy flow, right? Moving to music, moving to a beat, being surrounded by people, having that community and dance and movement is something so, I have to say the word healing almost.
Totally.
It's self-care, it's healing, and it's such an incredible experience. And especially, we're talking about the loneliness epidemic and everything. People are craving community, and that's one way to find community on the dance floor. And the fact that sort of a lot of people think, oh, if I stop, dancing, if I stop, drinking or doing any kinds of substances or whatever, I won't be able to partake in that sort of community and that sort of, movement to music and dancing anymore. But I really want people to understand that those are two completely separate things.
Totally.
Like, you can totally go, and especially like, New York City, we've got clubs around, basically round the clock that are open. Especially now in summer, there's so many outdoor dance parties that are like Sunday afternoons or Saturday afternoons, where you don't even have to necessarily like work particularly hard in order to go out. There's a place in Ridgewood nowadays that do nowadays on nonstop, and they literally open from Friday night to Sunday night. You can go there. You don't even have to get up at 3 a.m. You can get up at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Do they not close?
They don't close.
Oh, wow.
They don't close.
I did not know. Does
yeah.
anybody know that? We got to go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you can literally just roll out of bed at like 9 or 10, like your regular time on a Sunday, have breakfast, and you go there at like 11 or 12. You dance for a few hours, maybe you go have brunch or whatever afterwards, and then you're home by 5, 6, and just go about your day without
So good.
being, yeah, and the focus is really, again, like on the dancing, the community, the music, enjoying that, like enjoying moving your body,
Right.
and not necessarily like getting messed up.
Right, because I mean, what's so like blaring out to me right now is the energy and like that just life-giving sensation
Yeah.
of going out, dancing, being with people, the music around you, to then go out with that versus, then you're adding alcohol to the mix, and then there's a level of that where afterwards you oftentimes will just like feel like shit after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you're almost like negating like the positive effects. It's kind of like, think like you're doing a workout, and then you go out and get messed up and like do a bunch of shots after. You're kind
Right.
of negating like the negative effects of that workout on your body, and it's exactly in the same way you're almost like negating the negative the positive effect of like dancing and the community and the joy on the dance floor.
Totally.
By kind of just feeling like crap afterwards.
Yeah.
And like, it might take some adjustment to go out and
Totally.
party sober, and it's very much like a joy flow thing of like overcoming the self-consciousness, overcoming like the awkwardness and the, oh my God, are people looking at me? But once you've done it a few times, you're like, yeah, it's awesome.
Right.
And like, when the beat drops, whether you're
Yes.
sober or not, and it's gonna be awesome. You know what I mean?
The beat's gonna drop
The beat's
either
gonna
way. So
drop
what are
either
you
way,
doing?
and it's gonna be amazing. And you don't have to be drunk in order to enjoy that. Right?
Totally. Oh, so good. The other thing I'm thinking about as you're talking of like, this element of, like negating how you said, of like some of the positive effects. And I'm thinking of my own journey with alcohol and embracing sobriety, which wasn't like a one day, like I'm now going to be sober. It was just over time as I started to just really note, as I deepen my practice just in general of how are certain things making me feel. And the more and more I started to realize, well, after I drink, I'm not feeling good at all. That slowly I just started weaning away until I eventually said, okay, you know what? Yeah, I'm actually going to not drink. And there's been like such a level of like clarity that's entered my life since that point. But I'm curious, I mean, because when you started Third Place Bar, were you sober? Are you sober? Is that important to you? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because when I had the idea of starting Third Place Bar and opening this non-alcoholic bar, I was still drinking and I had no plans to ever stop drinking.
Yeah.
I just wanted to have an alternative. I just wanted to have that kind of space where, I could hang out, a few days a week or nights a week, that didn't revolve around drinking and provide that kind of same space to other people. But I was still seeing it just as an alternative. And then as I was researching the whole space of, sober bar, sobriety, alcohol-free drinks and everything, I kind of thought, okay, maybe I should also stop drinking for a while, for customer empathy, to kind of understand what like the sober people that would come to my bar would feel like. And as part of that, it was kind of like what you mentioned, sort of like it didn't have the plan to stop drinking for good and forever. It just said like, I'll try it out. And after 2 months, I just realized, oh, that was what was missing in my life was, or not necessarily missing, it's almost the other way around. That was the thing in my life that actually made it harder because it really impacted my mood swings. It impacted my sleep. It just impacted my energy levels.
Anxiety?
My
Question mark?
anxiety, exactly. My, like, hangxiety is a term, right? Hangover anxiety. And after 2 months, I was like, I'm feeling a lot better than I have in a long time from like a, mental health kind of position. I'll just stick with that because why would I go back to making it worse? Like, this is great. I like not feeling like a crazy person. I'll stick with that. And that's been, almost 2.5 years at this point. Actually, 2.5 years this month. And I'd be lying if I said I miss it.
Right.
Like, I miss some of the like getting very silly and whatever, but I always see it as like the enjoyment would be here and the negative effects and the sort of regrets afterwards would be here.
Right.
And the trade-off isn't worth it. Like for me, the trade-offs that I'm making are like, I don't know, chocolate croissants, right? Where I'm like, the joy is here and like, maybe the negative consequences are like here because I do eat too much sugar and I'm okay with that. Like I'm okay with that trade-off. But for alcohol, it's just it's not, it doesn't seem worth it to me. So I just haven't had a drink.
I'm curious to know in those 2.5 years, if you were to name maybe one thing that you've noticed as the biggest shift for you, what would that be?
I mean, it definitely has impacted the way I go out. I don't go to bars that much anymore. And I am more creative when it comes to like meeting up with people and figuring out other things to do with them,
Right.
other activities. I mean, it has shifted maybe a little bit more to like food or doing like crafty activities or other things, going to museums, finding more fun stuff to do. And like, that's great. Like
Right.
I'm being more creative in what I do.
Right. And then in terms of like when you're bringing folks together, I mean, what have you seen in terms of how people are connecting when they're in these spaces that you're creating?
It's really funny because it's almost just like watching any kind of event, even like a regular happy hour with like an open bar or something. People will always be awkward when they come in because whether you have an open bar or not, they're gonna arrive sober, right? And there's gonna be some amount of awkwardness. I usually try and like, be the greeter at the door, say hi to everyone, introduce them to people. We always have a bedazzle station for people to kind of,
Yes.
maybe get a little silly, get over the initial awkwardness. And it takes like 30 minutes and everyone's talking and everyone's having a good time. And to me, I don't really see a difference between how people interact at like regular bars or events that have alcohol. The only difference I see is when the event is over and I'm sending everyone home and I'm telling everyone good night, everyone walks out in a straight line looking, looking sober and clear and happy.
Right.
And that makes me so incredibly just proud of myself that I managed to give people a fun Saturday night out and they're going home and, they're safe.
Right.
And will wake up the next morning feeling good rather than me sending them home and they're staggering out and falling over, right? And that's the biggest difference, I think, at the end of the night. Like everyone's like happy and, says good night and walks out feeling good.
Right. Oh, it's so beautiful. What events do you have upcoming that you're looking forward to?
So I'm taking a little break in April, but then in May I'm back with a bunch of events. Actually, I have a candle making and mocktail class.
Oh, you were telling me
Yeah, so
about
we're
this.
making candles, and then while the candles are setting, we're also making our own mocktails at a little speakeasy in Bushwick. It's gonna be
Great.
amazing. Yeah, and then there will probably be a sober Cinco de Mayo party.
Cool.
Working with a Mexican non-alcoholic tequila brand specifically to really, support them.
Right.
And then we'll have another one of those Friday night out yoga live DJ nights
Right.
at the end of May. So
See y'all there.
very,
Yep.
very, very excited to do that. And we're probably going to have a bigger space this time and more
Amazing.
people. And I'm very, very excited about that. Yeah.
So good.
It's going to happen.
And then the last thing that I want to ask you, right, because we're talking about, right, these things again, we're super blessed to be here in New York, but for folks who are at home and maybe don't have access to, right, a non-alcoholic bar, what a luxury to be able to go to something like that. What would you recommend for somebody who's living in a space where they might not be able to, they don't have a third place, they need a third place bar, but they don't have one yet. So what are some, tips or recommendations of how they can start just like embracing or inviting this kind of living into their lives?
I would say, community always groups around shared interests. So
Yeah.
if your shared interest is whatever it is, knitting, book clubs, yoga, climbing, dancing, right? There's nothing stopping you from trying out a different thing
Totally.
every week. There will probably be something in the place you're in, right?
Yeah.
And if not, you can start it yourself. Third Place Bar exists because there was the thing that I wanted for myself wasn't there.
Right.
So I decided to start it myself.
Right.
While I was still, working a full-time job, I was kind of just doing that outside of my job, and I built up a community for myself. I built up the community that I wanted, which is, a bunch of people who are not that excited about drinking, but excited about getting together and socializing.
Amazing. So good. I'm very grateful that we found each other through that community.
Absolutely.
And so I want to turn it over to our audience to ask a question to our amazing guest. First of all, can we just give Sam a round of applause? So happy to have you here. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, please.
I do have a question for you, Sam. As somebody who is primarily sober, I've been sober for about a couple of years on and off, and have always been looking for an opportunity to join a community like this. Do you have any words of encouragement for people who might be nervous to join a community like this?
That's a good point.
Honestly, I always say, there's multiple things I say, but the first one actually came from me teaching kids, like young girls, to solder. And I always say, what's the worst thing that could happen? Just try it. Like I was teaching like programming classes and soldering classes and stuff, and I said, what's the worst that could happen if you come to an event? You might be awkward. You're gonna be fine. You've had significantly worse experiences in your life. And then the next thing I always say is like lean into the awkwardness, because to me, having the confidence to socialize sober and, join those kinds of groups, it's a muscle. It's kind of just like, lifting weights or running a marathon. We sort of expect ourselves to be naturally charming and confident and, good at socializing, whatever. But that's just not the case for most people, and that's totally okay. It's kind of like expecting to be able to run a marathon without any training, right? Like you need to train. Why do we expect ourselves to be like just naturally perfect at those kinds of things that are hard? Like social interaction with other people is difficult and awkward. And I always say just lean into the awkwardness. What's the worst that could happen? You have like a weird conversation, and then maybe, you'll ruminate and think about it for the next few days, but like it's fine. Like it's the impact on your life is minimal. And then you do it again, and then you do it again, and you learn and you learn and you learn and you level up. And then at some point you're gonna get to a level where you're gonna go into a room and you're completely sober. You feel awkward. Maybe you feel like, even psychosomatically, like you feel kind of like the adrenaline and everything. But you also know you're gonna be able to handle it. And that's kind of, I think that's the growth that's so exciting to witness in yourself. And you have to take the first step. Like, just lean into it.
And when you're noticed that you're feeling awkward, you take a breath in and you shake it
Exactly,
out. We
you shake
weave
it
it all
out.
back into
Exactly. I have a little somatic snack.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Do a little
You go into the
shrug.
bathroom, you do a little shake.
Start giggling.
Absolutely. You know what? Actually, last week, it's interesting because the question that was asked to our guest Keone last week, the same aspect of like, what's the worst that could happen came up. So it seems like a running theme. And then I also offered, and what's the best that can happen of letting yourself kind of play in that territory? Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Sam. Where can folks find you?
Probably on the internet. I'm on Instagram at Third Place Bar NYC, THIRD Place Bar NYC. Also have a website, thirdplacebar.nyc, and that's also where I announce all the upcoming events and post
Amazing.
lots of fun stuff. So I'm going to post a behind the scenes from today, probably.
Yeah. And you also post like a lot of resources, both like for New York based and in general.
I share a ton of resources for places in New York City that do great mocktails, or alcohol-free spaces, tea houses, alcohol-free spaces that are open late, really cool activities. So I try and like, you know, outside of just the events that I host a few times a month, I try to also be valuable to, you know, the people who follow me.
Totally. And you completely are. So
Thank you.
thank you. And if you are interested in living more of this sober, even curious, just embracing some alternative ways of being, of just having fun, just on the juices of yourself, you know, connect with Sam. And thank you so much. Let's give Sam one more round of applause. Such a complete
Thanks
pleasure
for
to have
having
you
me.
here.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for tuning in to the Morning Movement Show. I'm your host, Sarah Joy Gaines. Join us next Tuesday. We'll have Taya Knapp, founder of A Safe Space. Thank you so much. Have a great day, y'all.